A 28-point loss in the national championship was Nick Saban's worst ever at Alabama. But how will the Crimson Tide respond in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert. Alabama will respond with a vengeance in 2019. You do not want to face off against an angry Nick Saban-led team, and that's exactly what Alabama will be going into 2019. And some people are saying that this Alabama team could be even better than the one in 2018. And that's really scary considering that Alabama beat every regular season opponent last year by at least 22 points. The Crimson Tide returned 6 starters on offense, but none bigger than their star quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who threw for over 3,900 yards, 43 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions, and led the Crimson Tide's offense to average 45.6 points per game in 2018. He returns what could arguably be one of the best wide receiving corps in the entire nation with Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, and Devontae Smith. I believe it is Clemson and Alabama, no doubt, that have the top 2 wide receiver corps in the entire nation and have the top 2 wide receivers in the entire nation with Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. Defensively, Alabama also returned 6 starters from a squad that allowed 18.1 points per game. And that's nothing to frown about, but that was the most points allowed by an Alabama defense since 2014, when they allowed 18.4 points per game. And while everybody likes to point fingers and show how many players Alabama lost to the NFL draft this past season, that happens every year for Alabama. And every year they're able to reload and restock on that defense and end up doing just fine. They will be led by Dylan Moses in the linebacking core and Raekwon Davis at defensive end, 2 major leaders for this Alabama defense that will once again be one of the best in the entire nation. They open up the season against Duke, and you can't help but feel sorry for Duke facing off against this angry Crimson Tide team in Week 1 in Atlanta. And Duke losing their star quarterback Daniel Jones to the NFL draft, the number 6 overall pick to the New York Giants. They'll be breaking in a new quarterback with Quentin Harris and a defense that does have some questions, but I think will be the strength for the Blue Devils in 2019. Despite all of that, though, the Blue Devils do not stand much of a chance against Alabama. Breaking in a new quarterback, not returning many starters on offense, and a defense that is going up against one of the best offenses in the entire nation. I don't think many defenses will be able to stop Tua and this Alabama defense. Duke falls in Week 1. Alabama gets a season-opening win convincingly over the Blue Devils. They are 2-0 with a win over New Mexico State, and then they kick off SEC play early in Week 3 against South Carolina on the road. And the last time Alabama visited Williams-Brice Stadium, they lost to the Gamecocks 35-21. Of course, that was all the way back in 2010. South Carolina is a team that's going to be very hard to predict this year because of how difficult their schedule is. But they have a lot of talent. They return Jake Bentley, one of the most veteran quarterbacks and one of the best quarterbacks in the entire SEC. He returns 3 of his top 4 wide receivers and his running back, Enrico Dowdle. And I would like to say that I am always impressed with Will Muschamp's defense, and this year the Gamecocks returned 7 on that side of the ball. Despite all of that, though, I think Alabama is just going to have too much for the Gamecocks to handle. Last year, my big upset pick in the SEC was South Carolina beating Georgia at home in Week 2, an early SEC matchup at home against one of the best teams in the nation. I could do that again here, a trendy upset pick for some, but I do not think that Alabama will fall again on the road against South Carolina. They start off 1-0 in conference play and get a win here, but I would not be surprised in the slightest to see this game be fairly close going in to the 4th quarter. They get another win here against Southern Miss, one of those surefire victories we have on the board, and then really kick off the bulk of SEC play, kicking off with Ole Miss. Now, the past 2 meetings between Ole Miss and Alabama, the Crimson Tide have won 128-10. The previous 3 before that, the previous 3 meetings before these previous 2 blowouts, Alabama had lost 2 of those games. Of course, that was when Hugh Freeze led the Rebels, and they have one of the best offenses, and at one point were in college football playoff discussion. The Crimson Tide get to host this game at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and while Ole Miss will boast a very experienced defense with 10 returning starters, like Duke, they will be bringing in a new quarterback after losing Jordan Ta'amu. I do not have a lot of faith in this Ole Miss offense, even though that has been their strength in the previous years, and they do lose their top 2 wide receivers in A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf. It could be another blowout and another long night for the Ole Miss Rebels. Alabama starts off 2-0 in conference play with a convincing win once again over Ole Miss. Then they get a bye week, a big-time bye week, going into what could be their toughest test of the season, or at least one of them, on the road against Texas A&M. Last year, Texas A&M came on the road to Bryant-Denny Stadium and lost by 22 points, 45-23. That was the closest margin of victory for Alabama in their regular season. The last time Alabama visited College Station, they only won that game 27-19. It should also be noted that I believe Texas A&M is coming off a bye coming into this game as well. So two rested teams and a Texas A&M team led by Jimbo Fisher and Kellen Mond, one of the better quarterbacks in the entire SEC as well. This, to me, is a major trap game for Alabama. The 12th man will play a major role in this game for Texas A&M. This game will be extremely close. And by the time this game is over, people will start to question Alabama a little bit. Are they really back? Are they really going to be contenders? If they struggle against Texas A&M, can they compete at the college football playoff level? It doesn't matter. Texas A&M is the real deal. I have faith in them. But like South Carolina, they face one of the toughest schedules in the entire nation. Alabama escapes College Station in another close victory, much like they had 2 years ago, but do escape the Aggies with a win in College Station. I think, once again, this is where the offense for Alabama steps up. I like A&M's offense a lot, especially led by Kellen Mond and a very experienced core of wide receivers. But in the end, it's going to be Tua that outplays Mond and takes advantage of the weaknesses in A&M's secondary. They come back home to face off against two squads that they have dominated over the past about decade or so. Tennessee, Alabama has won the past 12 over, and as well as Arkansas, Alabama has won the past 12 against the Razorbacks. They face off against their rival Tennessee, though, and Tennessee will be one of the most experienced teams in the entire SEC East. Maybe even the entire SEC if you want to go that far. Returning practically all of their offensive production, 10 returning starters on offense and 6 on defense. Last year, Jeremy Pruitt had his team one win away from making a bowl game, and this year I think the Volunteers get there. But they don't have enough to beat Alabama, not at Bryant-Denny Stadium. If this game was at Neyland Stadium, I might lean a little towards not Tennessee pulling the upset, but making this game close. And I think Tennessee's offense keeps them in this game for about a half. Then Alabama pulls away late and wins convincingly. They make it 13 straight over the Volunteers, and they also make it 13 straight over the Arkansas Razorbacks. And not to disregard this game against Arkansas, like Tennessee, I expect them to be much improved in 2019. A team that brings in two transfer quarterbacks in Ben Hicks and Nick Starkel, and a running back in Rakeem Boyd. And keep in mind, before Clemson, Arkansas was the team that put up the most points against Alabama in 2018, scoring 31 when these two teams met in Fayetteville in 2018. But Bryant-Denny Stadium is one of the most difficult places to play. Arkansas, during their time there, over the past 12 meetings, or about past 6 meetings when they visited Bryant-Denny, has struggled to score any points against the Crimson Tide. While Arkansas will be much improved and while their defense will be even better than they were last year, they don't have a chance against Alabama. And Alabama sitting pretty undefeated entering November. And then, probably their second toughest game of the entire season. Maybe their first, depending on how you look at it. A big-time bye week, as always, going into that game against LSU. And Alabama continuing their win streaks over multiple teams, 12 each against Tennessee and Arkansas, 8 straight victories against LSU, many who consider to be the biggest threat to the Crimson Tide in the SEC West this season. Over those 8 straight victories that Alabama has over LSU, they're allowing just an average of 9 points per game against the Tigers. But this LSU team is different. This is a very different LSU team. In years past, under Les Miles, they weren't known for having a decent offense. They were always known for having a solid defense. This year, Ed Orgeron has put together a team that not only will have one of the best defenses in the entire nation, but will also boast a very dangerous offense led by Joe Burrow and a very dangerous core of wide receivers. I think he returns 4 of his top 5 as well. If this game was in Death Valley, I might lean towards LSU pulling off the upset. And I truly believe that this is the best chance LSU has to beat Alabama. It probably is one of the best chances LSU has to beat the Crimson Tide during these past 8 meetings. This is the best opportunity for them. But last year, Alabama went on the road, beat LSU 29-0. While the margin of victory will not be that large this year, the Crimson Tide will once again beat LSU and extend that winning streak over the Tigers to 9 games and probably prevent the Tigers from claiming an SEC West title in 2019. Alabama gets past LSU in what will be one of the biggest games of the entire year. They go on the road to Mississippi State, and Mississippi State coming off a bye here, but they lose their star quarterback in Nick Fitzgerald, and that's going to end up hurting Mississippi State this entire season. Joe Moorhead came in. I had kind of high hopes for him in 2018. He did not live up to expectations. Now, with the loss of Nick Fitzgerald, they might be playing Tommy Stevens, the transfer quarterback from Penn State, who Joe Moorhead was familiar with during his time there as offensive coordinator. The last time here, Alabama escaped with a win in Starkville, 31-24, scoring a game-winning touchdown with 25 seconds left. And it should be noted that last year Mississippi State only lost at Bryant-Denny Stadium 24-0, so held the Crimson Tide to just 24 points. All of that doesn't matter, though. Mississippi State, I think, takes a little bit of a step back in 2019, and Alabama gets a convincing win over the Bulldogs on the road. A surefire win over Western Carolina, a bit of a tune-up going into rivalry week against Auburn, and this game on the road. And as you've heard us say many times before, rivalry games, you can throw records out the window. Whatever the record is, it does not matter. Auburn could be winless in this game, but will give Alabama the fight of their lives. The same could be said for the Crimson Tide. And this Auburn team is one that's difficult to predict. They will boast one of the best defensive lines in the entire country, maybe the best defensive line in the entire country. But they have questions at quarterback. Joey Gatewood, Bo Nix, who's it going to be? And regardless of who it is, how will they fare being a freshman quarterback, a first-time starter, and Gus Malzahn now calling the plays for the Tigers? The last time Alabama visited Jordan-Hare Stadium, they lost 26-14, but it didn't matter. They still made the college football playoff and won the national championship game. Expect the Tigers to give Alabama a tough fight in this one, especially with that defensive line, I think, causing a little bit of trouble against Tua Tagovailoa. But the Crimson Tide will escape Jordan-Hare Stadium with a win this time, not by 31 points like they beat the Tigers last year, but convincingly enough. And the Crimson Tide will finish the season 12-0. And I think for many people, that is not that big of a surprise. When you look at Alabama's schedule, if there's a game that they could lose, I think it comes their top three games are South Carolina, A&M, and LSU, and maybe throw Auburn in there, even though I'm not super high on the Tigers this season. Maybe you call those their top four games that they have to worry about. And three of those, of course, being on the road. But without those four games, or despite those four games, I think Alabama does finish 12-0. That will give them a spot in the SEC championship game. More than likely, once again, against Georgia. They get past them, they're in the college football playoff yet again on the 2019 redemption tour for the Crimson Tide. And I can't wait to see how it all plays out for Nick Saban, Alabama, looking to get back and claim that national title that they were unable to get in 2018. So guys, as always, thank you for watching. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us there at Gridiron Expert, and go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will get every single one of our college football spread picks for the 2019 season, including the postseason. And I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So to join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.